All right, we'll go ahead and get started as people start coming in. Today's session is going to be on achieving mass sharing and reuse with Jenkins. My name is James Gress. I work for Accenture. I'm the North America DevOps platform lead. I manage a team that's designed to rapidly mobilize our client teams into DevOps spaces. We configure, mobilize, and maintain these tools. My email's up there, and as well as my Twitter handle if you want to contact me on all the normal channels. LinkedIn, I'm out there at justjamesgress.com. To give you a little bit of a history on my background, I've been in the business for 23 years. I've developed across multiple technologies and languages over the years. I started my career as a mainframe COBOL developer and have since touched just about every technology along the way, ranging from mainframes, Linux, Unix, Windows, even creating SOA architectures for .NET. Today we're going to cover a lot of ground, and I'm going to try to cover as much as possible. So I'll be taking questions at the end, off stage. Oops. So as a leader, I really like to try to extract value from everything that we do, right? So every time we fix a bug or implement an idea, I usually go back to my team and as they're describing the problem or they're describing the issue that they come across, and the fantastic thing and however they fixed it back to us, I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, how do I harvest this and be able to contribute this back for the next effort, or be able to use it as a experience and be able to move the barrier of entry or the starting point into some of these things very rapidly and quickly. And the whole idea, right, is to be able to capture ideas, turn them into innovation. And I know it sounds a little cliche, but our people are really our best assets. And when we're talking about hardening our DevOps pipelines and really managing applications in real-life production environments, the DevOps pipelines can get quite complex. So whether that's doing AWS tagging strategies to understand the support model or the usage model and how much money we're spending on particular environments that are out there, or creating a pipeline to support a SaaS-like offering where we're taking an application, Dockerizing it, putting it out in a highly available environment. They can get quite complex on all the little things you have to do. Generally a lot more complex than when you come to Jenkins World and we do a Hello World app. We load it up, we say, oh look, 5 jobs and we're done. But in reality, what we're doing out there is highly complex. There's lots of ideas, a lot of innovation that's out there. And if you think about the scale of Accenture, it's 400,000 employees, and we could really do some fantastic things if we're able to share and reutilize and take these ideas and be able to share them in a meaningful way. Typically, in a lot of organizations, we do this through tribal knowledge, emails, team meetings. This information usually doesn't go too far outside your circles. Some of the technologies that are out there today, especially in the Atlassian space, is the Jira Confluence, being able to wiki this stuff and share it across larger organizations. But I really think the goal, right, is to be able to share this innovation in such a way that it's easily repeatable and in a more automated fashion, so that as I go to spin up these environments or spin up these pipelines, it's a lot of that innovation that was developed by people before me is all right there baked in. So, and the way we do this is by sharing, and we believe that sharing is directly proportional to our ability to scale. And what I mean by this is, if we look at the blue line, we have the not sharing line. So in this case, I could have 2 developers producing X quantity of bug fixes, issues, etc. If I wanted to double that, I could easily put 4 people on that and double that out. But I think the real value is being able to capitalize and reuse the innovations that we're developing in such a way so that the next folks that come along don't have to spend so much time developing against it, and they can start exponentially moving that upwards. So now if I increase or double the size of my team, I can get 2, 3, 4x value back out of it. And we do that through sharing. I think a great example of sharing that's out there today is using Docker. This way we're able to share entire applications just by downloading a Docker file and getting up and running, where in the past we would have had to install the application, go through a bunch of configuration management setup. Now we're able to use Docker in such a way that it makes what was normally a non-trivial job somewhat trivial. So when we're talking about DevOps, what do we really want to share? Historically, a lot of companies out there, we've been sharing code and build scripts for a long time. Now that infrastructure as code is mainstream, we're sharing a lot of information provision automation, but we also want to start sharing the unit tests that go along with that product, performance tests, integration tests, infrastructure tests. We also want to share the CI/CD pipelines that go along with that. We want to share the onboarding automation. So not only do we want the pipelines, but they want them all integrated and wired up together. So if I bring on a Java application, I get an entire stack. And as well, we want to also share a common platform. So if you can think about the scale of Accenture, 400,000 folks, we want to share this common platform across a lot of our client engagements to achieve what we've learned on being able to mobilize the DevOps platform in such a way that it's easily shareable. In a sense, we really want to share everything. So as you can see, most people in here, or I'm hoping most people in here, can recognize the Jenkins pipeline along the top. This is a simple case of moving an application, but we also want to automate the entire infrastructure that the application is sitting on. So we want to create in the environments, we want to create the subnets, the availability zones. We want to share the databases, repositories that go along with that, all the performance tests, including the prod and non-prod environments. So this is an example of a little bit more complex pipeline. So if we were looking at the earlier pipeline where it's a simple use case where we're going through build, code quality, deployment steps. In real life, we have pipelines that look a little bit more like this, where we're supporting an entire application. So I'm not going to drain the slide too much, but if you look at the bottom square, or the bottom section down here, we have the platform and all the pipelines and source code repositories that go along with that. And then across the top, we would have the non-prod and prod environments. So if we think about sharing, we want to share all the Git repositories that our application or our platform needs to be able to build, as well as we want the CI/CD pipelines that go along with supporting the platform, and the application code for the non-prod and prod environments that go along the top of it. And the way we do this is we use the Accenture DevOps platform. It's a reusable set of tools, pre-configured, that we use to go stand up DevOps at our clients. It comes in two flavors. We have ADOP Enterprise, which is all the enterprise levels of the tools, including collaboration set for, this includes Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, and of course, CloudBees. SonarQube, Nexus, Docker, and Selenium. This is really set up in a PaaS-like environment, so when our clients get into this, we host that up. We manage the licensing on the back end, and it's a really easy way to get into this level of a platform. The other one we have is ADOP Community. And this is the one I think is kind of interesting as well, because ADOP Community is hosted out on GitHub. It's open source and available. So if you go out to github.com, search for ADOP, you'll see ADOP Community out there. But this one's going to contain all your open source versions of the softwares. So you'll have your Git, Garrett, Jenkins, SonarQube, Nexus, Docker, Selenium, Sensu, Elk, Gatling, and Cucumber. So there's a couple extra tools there so that you can actually monitor and manage the platform. It's platform agnostic, so it's going to be able to run on anywhere you can install Docker. So it's going to run on your Azure, your AWS, IBM Bluemix. It'll run on my local machine, or even on-prem situations where the client might not want their platform out in the cloud. There's a couple of concepts that we've put into the platform. So the core is considered the list of tools that you have up there. We recognize that some organizations might have other tool sets around testing or security that they might want to integrate. So we have a thing called platform extensions, which will help us automate the onboarding of those applications into our platform. You can do it on an automated fashion, or we can use a platform extension to accelerate that. And we also have a concept of cartridges. And a cartridge is going to be able to bring on a technology stack like a Java or a .NET or a Salesforce or a technology that you want to go horizontally across the platform. So it's going to load up your source control, give you pipelines, set up your code quality analysis, run some basic testing, give you a reference application, set up environments along the way. Some of the platform extensions and 8-up cartridges we have out here, this isn't a complete list. This is just a bit of a handful of ones we have out there. We have Ansible and Chef for your platform extensions. Some of the cartridges we have out there are SAP, Hybris, Siebel, and Salesforce. These give you a great way to get in and understand like how to do DevOps in these technologies very quickly. And if you can see here, the theme on being able to share and reuse this as we go. So now I'm going to get into the demo side of it so we can actually see how this works. We're going to load up a cartridge, but first I need an 8-out platform that's ready to go for us. So probably about 2 hours ago in the hotel room, I spun a new 8-op up. Considering the time frame that we had for this particular talk, I didn't think 45 minutes was long enough to stand one up during the talk and to load a cartridge and do all the things we wanted to. So I did it a little early, but it's a fresh instance of 8-op. I used a CloudFormation script to go out there and tell AWS, hey, here's the environment I want to build. I want you to go out and create a VPC. I want you to create all my public subnets and private subnets. I want to create an EC2 container as well as install Docker on it. Once Docker is installed, we'll bring in all our containers that's going to have our Jenkins, our Sensu, our Elk stack. As those containers are onboarded onto the platform, they're going to have initialization scripts that start up and figure out how to wire the rest of the platform together. Then Jenkins, of course, comes along and wraps up a couple extra things for us and loads our first cartridge, which during this demonstration, it'll be a Node.js application with a complete pipeline and environments that are out there. So let's switch over to the demo side. So it looks like we have Jenkins live. So I'm in AWS. I use a CloudFormation script like I said earlier. I click on Jenkins live. And we can see an output of that is an IP address. I click on my IP address and I come to the 8-op dashboard. From the 8-op dashboard, you can see we have a quick access and quick links to all the different tools that at least have web front ends to our platform. To quickly go through them, we're using Jenkins as our orchestrator. Git Garrett for our Git repositories. Static code analysis, we're using SonarQube. We're using Nexus for our software repository manager, Kibana to be able to aggregate all the logs from all these different applications into one spot, Selenium for testing, Sensu for monitoring proactively the containers that are within the platform so that we know if something were to go down right away. And in most cases, we hook into the client's local LDAP, but for demo purposes and if we're standing this up in a sandbox environment or out in AWS, we wanted to be able to provide some local LDAP if we're not going to be connecting into it right away. So we've got security built right in. Now there was a couple other applications that we saw out there, Gatling and Cucumber. Those are accessible through Jenkins itself, and we'll take a quick look at that. So if I go into Jenkins, we can see that it's just not a blank instance. Even though this is brand new, we have a couple of platform management jobs that come along with ADOP. This helps us organize and set things up, and comes with a cartridge loader that allows us to be able to bring this stuff in quickly and rapidly. These are those 3 jobs right there. As well as we brought in our first cartridge. Our first cartridge is a B2C application written in Node.js. It was written on the Accenture Open Web Platform, so that's what the AOWP stands for. And if we click in to there, we see this project is the B2C portal. We can click that, and we can see we have pipelines that are ready to go, that are going through our build, our code analysis, deploying out to a CI environment, unit tests, security tests, performance tests, test automation, and deployments out to A/B type environments. So right out of the box, we get not only a full DevOps platform, but we also get a reference application that goes through the entire life cycle, so we can start seeing how to use all these tools very effectively and very fast. So if I was just to go across the top, normally I would go into each one during the into each one, but I've loaded up a few of these across the top. So if our Git Garrett, we can see that we have a number of repositories here for the AOWP B2C portal project. This will become relevant when I load the next cartridge, because we're going to automatically load up a number of repositories. That's the job. We can see that in SonarQube, it's already listed the AOWP B2C portal for scanning and our code quality, as well as our security, performance testing, and Cucumber reports. Now keep in mind, some of these only have like 1 test or 1 scan, but it is for generally demo purposes and what we show in front of clients. So we want these tests to actually go through pretty quickly and not wait an hour to get through a demonstration or a sample pipeline. And of course, after everything runs, we get an application in the end. And this is our B2C portal. It's a basic application that if I type in some information, it does some work. So it's ready for it to be checked out of the Git Garrett repositories, make a change, and watch it go through the DevOps lifecycle. So this is how we share. And then what I really wanted to show you guys is how do we load a cartridge. So this one came automatically with the platform. And we didn't really get to see it load. So now let's just take the use case of, I didn't need to do that. Let's take the use case of, I'm going to create a Jenkins World app, or jenkinsworld.com, okay? So I'd want to create a workspace, and there's a number of helper jobs that help me do this. If I build this with parameters, and I just come up and say, hey, I want all my projects to be in this one workspace. So we'll call that Jenkins World. I'm going to leave the other ones default. This is when I stood this platform up, it only had administrator privileges, or it only had one user called administrator. If I had other users on the platform, I might want to specify them at that point so they're automatically added. So under my workspace, I can see that I have a Jenkins World. And if I click into here in this folder, I now have a project management folder with a generate project. And this is where I'm going to put my actual project name. So this would be my jenkinsworld.com. And I'm going to build that, go back to Jenkins World. And as soon as Jenkins finishes this, we have a folder called jenkinsworld.com now. So this is where I can put my, in this case, I'm going to load a Java Spring application. So under cartridge management, I'm going to load this. I'm going to do the load cartridge job. I'm going to build it with parameters. And under the clone URL, we have a number of cartridges that are available to us out on GitHub. One of them being the Java application, as well as some Chef Docker cartridges we can pull in. even a ASP Linux cartridge. In this case, I know which one I want, so I'm going to select that. If I was doing a local cartridge development, I could bring a Git repository down local, point it to wherever I need to, and load that up. I'm going to go ahead and select the defaults. And as that runs, I'm going to go back to my jenkinsworld.com. And I'm going to refresh a couple of times because Jenkins is out there doing a bunch of magic for me. And we can see that it brought in a number of jobs for us to support a Java Spring app. If I refresh here, I see that the create environment job's already running. So this is going to start creating my dev environment right off the bat. So not only did I load my cartridge, but I now have a dev environment that's getting created. If I click on the create environment, I know that it doesn't automatically build my prod, so I'm going to go ahead and select my prod environment next and let that kick off. Now that that's in the stack or in process, I can actually go out to my pipeline, and we can see that nothing's really been run here, so it's ready to be run for the first time. And I'm going to click run. Now this does take a few minutes. So what I want to do now is skip over to some of the things that the cartridge loader did. So if we go back to our Git Garrett, it loaded a number of repositories down locally for me. So if I go out to projects and lists, this was my original cartridge that I loaded. And down here under all these Jenkins Worlds repositories are the ones that the cartridge went out, pulled down, renamed effectively to be able to start developing against this very quickly. So it has a reference application, it's got my security tests, my performance tests, and everything that I need to be able to start developing against a Java Spring app. Now I'm going to switch back over and see just how far we are in the pipeline. So now we've already pulled that reference application in. Now we're going to run the unit tests against it, and then we're going to run the code analysis. And as soon as the code analysis runs, we'll see that over on the Sonar Cube here, we'll have another job called Jenkins World. Okay, so that is not the one I want. So this does take just a second. Okay, so now the code analysis is scanning. And as soon as it's done, it should resolve over here, and we can see that it will have wired up this new project automatically for me. Okay, perfect. So I refresh, and now I see Jenkins World and jenkinsworld.com. So I've effectively been able to take a reference application, give it a full CI/CD pipeline, give it all of its environments, run it through all the quality gates, and have a running application. And I can take a look at this application if I go over to my Jenkins. We should almost be at deploy application. So we'll take a look at it in the CI environment. I go to my console app. I'm gonna click that, and that's all right. I expected that. I just need to grab this IP address. And we'll change our public IP right here to this instance. Get rid of the HTTPS. We notice it already has security built in. We put our credentials, and now we have a running application in our CI. As long as it goes back through the other quality gates, we'll have one out there in 2 other environments. So we'll have 3 full environments where this application's been deployed, a CI plus a two production environments, node A and a node B, sitting behind a load balancer. So that's the demo portion. I just need to skip back down here to the slides. So the anatomy of a cartridge. It really needs to be easy to develop against, because if it's difficult, it's hard to get developers to actually go develop against it. And when people ask, is it easy to develop a ADOP cartridge? Yes, it's easy. It really only takes a few files. We have a README file, we have an environment provisioning Groovy, we also have an applications job Groovy, and then a URLs.txt to be able to bring in our repositories that we want from remote locations. So as you can imagine, the environment provisioning handles all of our infrastructure's code, setting up the environments, and then our applications job contains our CI/CD pipelines. So a little closer look at the URLs.txt. It's just a listing of the GitHub repositories that we want to pull down. So we can see there in this particular example it was 6. In the other example that I brought in, which was part of our Java Spring application, it brought in 5. And then the cartridge loader will go through all the Groovy files and start setting up the CI/CD pipelines that support the application as well as the jobs. And then to get started, there is a specification out on GitHub for cartridges. And we've also built into the CLI an init command, so that if you wanted to start developing a cartridge quickly, you can just type in ADOP cartridge init, and it'll give you a sample template in which you can start developing against very quickly. The Groovy files are all based on Job DSL, and we have, or I shouldn't say we have, there's the Jenkins Dsl Playground. Anybody have messed with the Jenkins Dsl Playground? A couple hands went up. What I really like about this is it gives us the ability to type in our Groovy, create our APIs that are going to start generating out the XML that Jenkins expects for his job. And we're able to do that in kind of like a real live environment, where if you type in the left side what those APIs and the structure of what you want to, how that to look, if you can put your loop statements and all that other syntax over on the left, you can run it using the run command, and then it'll start generating out that XML quickly, so to make sure that like the cartridge loader doesn't fail. And it really is all based, a lot of it, on Job DSL to get that to work. So as I mentioned earlier, it's all based on, as I mentioned earlier, we've open sourced the project. So you can take exactly what I've done and do it for yourself. You can go out to GitHub. We have the link right there at the bottom. So accenture.github.io. We have the homepage, a quick start guides, documentation, as well as access to the code that's available out there to be downloaded. Oh, and we also invite you to consume it, contribute, and give us any feedback that you might have. And in summary, this is how we are able to share and take our ideas and innovate them using ADOP. So the actual demo went a little faster than I thought. I'll open it up to any questions that you might have. Oh, one question here.
Were you using, in your pipelines, were you using the new Jenkins 2 declarative, or just strictly the job DSL from the old?
In this example was the job DSL.
Okay.
I think what we were referring to, so the question was, is there a job that builds other jobs?
Yeah, but it looked like when you ran one the particular step, then there were several other jobs that appeared. Is that what happened?
Yes, part of the cartridge loader, it goes through a job DSL, okay? It loops through the Groovy file, and it will take that information and start producing jobs based on what you fed into that Groovy file. But essentially, one could say that yes, it's a job that creates other jobs.
Is it requiring manual forms kind of an anti-pattern? Does it just require so much work to just set up even one project that every person that uses this is going to have to manually go through that process? Wouldn't it be better to store all that source control? Like each project, so that like, instead of one job, instead of all the jobs?
So in this case, if I understand the question right, when we develop a cartridge, it's all based in a Git repository, and all that information is stored in that Git repository, so that when we go to spin that up, it is all based on one repository.
But it's just a lot of work per project, right? So what if, like, wouldn't it take forever to spin to throw 100 projects on a server? Would that take up like an entire day?
I'll meet with you after, and we can get more into the nuts and bolts of that. I think that's a longer discussion. All right, well, I appreciate it.
Can I ask a question? So how do you handle a situation where like certain team they require certain different version of Jenkins, and then if they're on using the same ADOP package, then on the Jenkins version is the same. What I'm asking is there will be certain team they prefer to advance to Jenkins 2.7, for example, and then certain team they prefer stay on 1.6. How would you handle that?
So we do advance ADOP, but if you wanted to use ADOP to accelerate your platform and mobilize it out there, you can always upgrade Jenkins just like you normally would, or you could utilize a upgraded container that we would specify out there. All right, well, it's getting pretty close to the end of the day. I'm sure you guys will want to take advantage of some of the social activities that are afterwards. I do appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me present today's topic. And I look forward to socializing with you guys afterwards.